The evening sun painted the sky with gold as Ifunanya stood quietly on the balcony of the house she had once called her dream. Every corner of that home carried her touch, from the curtain she had chosen with love to the flowers she watered every morning. But now the air felt heavy, empty. Tebena stood in the living room, his face calm but cold. "I need a fresh start," he said, as if those words didn't carry the weight of years together. Ifunanya's heart broke in silence. She wanted to ask why, to remind him of everything they built, but her pride held her voice still. Instead, she looked at him with teary eyes and whispered softly, "May your fresh start not cost you what you already had." He didn't look back as he walked out, leaving behind the scent of his cologne and the echo of closing doors. When the gate shut, Ifunanya's knees weakened, and she leaned on the wall, feeling the sharp sting of betrayal. Outside, life continued as if nothing had changed. Children played, cars passed, the sky glowed, but for her that moment felt like the quiet death of everything she once believed in. It didn't even take a month before Tebena was seen everywhere with his new lover, Chimamanda. A young, stunning woman who looked like she had stepped out of a magazine cover. Her beauty was the kind that made people stare twice. Glowing skin, perfect smile, always dressed in designer clothes. Tebena couldn't hide his excitement. He flooded social media with pictures of them. Matching outfits at dinner, expensive vacations by the beach. Her laughing in his arms like love was brand new. They looked perfect, almost too perfect. People noticed. The same neighbors who once admired Ifunanya's calm grace now gossiped in whispers. "He's upgraded," some said. Others laughed behind her back, calling her the old model. The internet joined in too, comments, jokes, little posts comparing the two women. "He replaced her with beauty," someone wrote, and it spread like wildfire. Ifunanya saw it all. Her friends begged her to block the posts, to stop looking, but she couldn't help it. Every scroll felt like a knife. Yet on the outside she stayed composed, greeting people politely, keeping her head high, pretending not to notice the pity in their eyes. At night, when the house grew too quiet, she would sit on the edge of her bed, scrolling through old photos of her and Tebena, the ones where he used to hold her hand the same way he now held Chimamanda's. Sometimes tears came, sometimes just silence. But deep inside something was shifting. The pain was heavy, yes, but it was also teaching her something. For the first time in a long while, she looked in the mirror not as a wife, not as someone's choice, but as a woman who had been broken and was still standing. When Tebena finally moved out, he didn't just take his clothes or his memories, he took almost everything. The car was gone, the bank account was cleared. Even the furniture disappeared one by one until the house looked like an empty shell. The dining table where they once shared laughter was gone. The couch where they watched movies together was missing. Only one old chair remained, the one she had bought long before marriage, back when life was simple. That evening, Ifunanya walked through the empty rooms, her footsteps echoing like whispers of the past. She touched the walls, remembering how she had chosen the paint, how she had dreamt of raising children there. It all felt like a bad dream she couldn't wake up from. She sat on the single chair, surrounded by silence and shadows, and for a long time she said nothing. Then quietly, almost like a prayer, she whispered, "What they don't know is that I built everything from zero once. I can do it again." Tears rolled down her face, but they didn't feel weak, they felt cleansing. She realized that all the things he took were only objects, not her strength, not her heart, not her ability to rise again. She had lost comfort, yes, but she still had courage. That night she didn't sleep. She made a list in her old notebook, what she had left, what she needed, and what she would build next. The pain in her chest was still there, but beneath it was a quiet fire, the kind that doesn't burn out, only grows stronger. By dawn, she looked around the empty room and smiled faintly. "You can't take the woman who built it all," she murmured to herself. "You only took the things she no longer needs." A week later, Ifunanya took a long walk to Emuko market, the same market where her late father once owned a small fabric shop. It had been years since she stepped inside. When she pushed open the rusty metal door, a cloud of dust rose into the air. The shelves were empty, the old sewing machine sat in one corner, covered in cobwebs. The air smelled of age and memories. Yet instead of sadness, she felt something stir inside her: hope. This was where she had learned everything about fabric, colors, and patience. This was where her story could begin again. She rolled up her sleeves and started cleaning. The first day, she swept until her arms ached. The second day, she scrubbed the walls and washed the windows until sunlight returned to the room. By the third day, she found her father's old scissors, still sharp after all these years. She smiled through tears. "Papa," she whispered, "your little girl is starting again." When she finally sat at the sewing machine, her hands trembled, but her heart was steady. The sound of the needle hitting fabric was like music, a slow, steady rhythm of healing. She stitched simple dresses at first, using leftover fabrics she found in an old box. People passed by and peeked in curious. Some pitied her, some just stared, but Ifunanya didn't mind. Every night, after closing the shop, she would sit by the doorway, watching the sunset over the market. "My tears will water this soil," she said softly. "Something beautiful will grow here again." And with each new morning she returned with a little more strength, a little more peace. The same hands that once trembled from heartbreak were now building something new. Not just a business, but a woman reborn from her own pain. The market was alive with chatter, laughter, and gossip, and Ifunanya had become one of the main topics. Every time she passed, some women would lower their voices and whisper, pretending to be busy arranging their goods. "Ah, is that not Madame Ifunanya?" one would say. "She used to drive an SUV, now look at her sitting in that old shop." Another would sigh with fake pity. "Money really finishes fast when the man leaves." Their words stung like needles, but Ifunanya never let her face show it. She would simply smile, greet them politely, and continue threading her needle. Her friend Ngozi, who sold accessories nearby, often got angry for her. "Nanya, why don't you say something? Why let them talk like that?" But Ifunanya would just laugh softly. "Let them talk," she said one afternoon, carefully ironing a new dress. "Their words will one day sound like applause." Slowly, her small business began to attract attention. Her first few customers were young brides who couldn't afford expensive designers. But when they wore her dresses, the beauty spoke louder than any brand. Her stitching had heart, her designs carried stories, and soon word spread. One bride told another, and before long, Madame Nanya the tailor became known for creating magic out of fabric. Each evening she locked her shop and walked home with a tired body but a peaceful smile. The same market that once pitied her was now beginning to notice her craft. And every time she heard someone whisper her name again, she didn't feel pain. She felt purpose. Deep down she knew something powerful. The same mouths that gossiped today would one day celebrate her. She was no longer the woman who lost everything. She was the woman quietly rising again, one stitch at a time. Months passed, and the little shop that once smelled of dust and silence began to glow with life. Ifunanya's hands never stopped working. From sunrise to late night, she sewed, designed, and dreamed. Her dresses were different. They carried the soul of her story. She mixed rich EBUBE fabrics with soft modern styles, blending culture and confidence in every piece. Her customers loved that her clothes didn't just make them look beautiful, they made them feel powerful. One day, a young bride posted pictures of her wedding gown made by Ifunanya. The gown was breathtaking, hand-stitched with coral patterns, elegant but simple. Within hours the photos went viral. Comments flooded in. "Who made this dress? This is pure African elegance." People began tagging her small page, and suddenly orders started coming from all over the city, even from abroad. Ifunanya renamed her shop House of Nanya. She designed a simple logo, painted her door gold, and turned her father's old shop into a beautiful boutique. Each dress told a story. Stories of women who refused to give up, who found beauty in resilience. Influencers began visiting her shop, proudly wearing her creations and calling her the woman who turned heartbreak into fashion. Sometimes she would stand outside her store, watching customers walk in with joy, and whisper to herself, "See, Papa, we did it." Her heart swelled with gratitude, not just for the success, but for the strength that had carried her here. House of Nanya was no longer just a brand. It became a movement, a symbol of elegance, grace, and quiet power. The same market women who once gossiped now pointed at her proudly. And when she walked through a Muko market, people didn't whisper with pity anymore. They whispered her name with admiration. Tabena's new life, which once looked perfect on social media, slowly began to crumble in reality. The same love that once made him feel young and powerful now started to drain him. Chimamanda, the woman he had left everything for, no longer smiled the same way. She spent hours on her phone, whispering to people he didn't know, going out and returning late with vague excuses. At first he ignored it, convincing himself that she just needed space. But soon strange things began to happen. Money went missing from his account, business deals started to fail, and documents disappeared without a trace. He tried to hide the truth behind expensive gifts and flashy pictures, still trying to prove to the world that his new life was perfect. But deep inside he knew it wasn't. The sparkle was gone. The laughter felt fake. Even the house that once seemed so full of life now felt cold and empty. He started drinking more, scrolling through old pictures of Ifunanya late at night. Though he would never admit it, people began to whisper. The same people who once praised him for choosing beauty now laughed quietly behind his back. His new woman is finishing him, someone said in the barber shop. That's what happens when pride blinds a man, another replied. Tebena felt the sting of shame each time he heard her name, Ifunanya. She was now successful, respected, glowing in ways he had never seen before. Meanwhile, his own world was slowly falling apart. Chimamanda had become distant, cold, and unpredictable. He tried to fix things, but it was too late. The fairy tale he chased had turned into a nightmare. And for the first time in years, Tebena realized the painful truth. He had traded loyalty for lust, and in doing so he had lost everything that ever truly mattered. One quiet evening, Tebena came home earlier than usual. The house was strangely silent. No music, no laughter, no sound of Chimamanda's high heels clicking on the floor. At first he thought she had gone out shopping again, but something felt off. He called her name. No answer. When he opened the bedroom door, his heart dropped. The closets were empty. Every drawer was pulled out, the jewelry boxes gone, and his safe stood wide open, completely bare. His documents, cash, even the keys to his cars, all missing. He ran from room to room, calling her name over and over, but only the echo of his own voice replied. He picked up his phone and tried calling her, but the number was no longer reachable. That was when reality hit him like a blow. Chimamanda was gone. Completely gone. He sank to the floor, his hands shaking as he looked around the house. The same house he had filled with expensive things to impress her. Now it was empty, just like his heart. His mind replayed Ifunanya's last words. May your fresh start not cost you what you already had. Tears filled his eyes as the weight of those words crushed him. He had left a woman who built him, for one who destroyed him. The betrayal burned deeply, not just because of the money, but because he realized how foolish pride had made him. The same people who once envied him would soon hear the news, and he couldn't bear the thought of their laughter. That night, Tebena sat alone on the cold floor, surrounded by silence and regret. Everything he once valued, love, wealth, peace, was gone. For the first time he understood what true loss felt like. He whispered to himself, voice trembling, I traded loyalty for lust and lost it all. Tebena spent days in shock. His house felt like a grave, quiet, cold, and empty. The walls that once echoed with laughter now carried only silence. He tried to reach out to friends, but everyone had heard the story. Some ignored his calls, others pretended to be busy. The same people who once toasted with him at fancy parties now avoided his number. His pride was gone, his money was gone, and even his name carried shame. One night, as rain poured heavily outside, he sat on the floor of his living room, holding his phone in trembling hands. There was only one person left he could call, the one he had hurt the most. For a long moment he stared at her name on the screen, Ifunanya. His heart raced. Finally he pressed call. When she answered, her voice was calm but distant. Hello, she said softly. Tebena swallowed hard, his voice cracking. Please, Nanya. I've lost everything. For a few seconds there was only silence. Ifunanya closed her eyes, remembering the day he had walked out of their home without looking back, leaving her in tears. She could still feel that pain, but she also knew she had healed too much to let anger control her. Her voice was gentle when she finally spoke. You didn't lose everything, Tebena, she said quietly. You gave it away. Those words hit him harder than any insult ever could. He couldn't respond. Only the sound of his broken breathing filled the line. Ifunanya ended the call peacefully, setting her phone down beside her sewing machine. She sat there for a while, staring at the half-finished dress in her hands. She didn't feel revenge or joy, only a deep, quiet peace. The same man who once made her feel small was now learning what it meant to lose what truly mattered. A few days after that call, Ifunanya was in her shop, adjusting the hem of a bride's gown, when she looked up and froze. Standing at the entrance was Tebena. The man who once walked away from her with pride now stood before her looking smaller, older, and worn out. His once polished shoes were dusty, and his clothes, plain and wrinkled, told the story of a man who had lost everything. The chatter in the market slowly died down as people noticed him. Some pretended to be shopping, others whispered behind their palms. Everyone knew who he was, the husband who left her for another woman. He hesitated for a moment before walking in. His eyes wandered around the shop, the elegant dresses, the golden house of Nanya sign, the customers admiring her designs. He looked at her, struggling to find the right words. "You look well," he said quietly, his voice trembling. Ifunanya looked up from her sewing machine, calm and graceful. "I am," she replied softly. "Pain taught me how to bloom." Her words hung in the air like a melody. Tebena swallowed hard, his eyes glistening with regret. He wanted to say more, to explain, to apologize, but no words could undo the past. The silence between them was heavy, filled with memories of love, betrayal, and everything in between. She offered him a seat, the same way she once did when he came home from work years ago. But this time her heart was steady, free of anger or longing. She had already healed. As she continued her work, Tebena sat quietly, watching the woman he once took for granted shine in her new world. For the first time he realized she hadn't just survived, she had transformed. The same pain that broke her had become the reason she rose higher than he ever imagined. Ifunanya looked at Tebena sitting quietly across from her, shoulders slumped, eyes filled with shame. For a long moment she said nothing. The room was silent except for the soft hum of her sewing machine. Then she stood up, walked to the corner, and poured him a cup of water. When she placed it in front of him, his eyes widened in surprise. It was something she used to do every evening when they were married, back when love still lived between them. He took the cup with shaking hands, unable to look her in the eye. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice breaking. Ifunanya simply nodded, her face calm and kind. "Not every loss is a punishment," she said softly. "Some are lessons wrapped in disguise." Her tone wasn't bitter. It was peaceful, the voice of someone who had fought her battles and made peace with her scars. Tebena's throat tightened. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Instead, tears rolled down his face, quiet, heavy tears that came from a place too deep for pride. He realized then that he hadn't just lost a wife. He had lost a woman who truly cared for him, who prayed for his success even when he failed her. He looked around the shop again, the vibrant fabrics, the smiling customers, the warmth that filled the space. This was the life she built from the ruins he left behind. And instead of bitterness, she offered him grace. That broke him even more. Ifunanya placed a gentle hand on the table and said, "You will be fine, Tebena. Pain is a teacher, let it teach you." He nodded silently, unable to stop crying. In that moment he understood something he never had before. She was never weak for forgiving him. She was stronger than he had ever been. Soon, news about Ifunanya's story spread far beyond the walls of a Muko market. It started with a single post. A customer shared her picture online, wearing one of her stunning dresses, and wrote, "She's the woman whose husband left her, but now she's the one everyone looks up to." The post went viral overnight. People couldn't stop talking about her. "He left her for beauty, but she rose with grace," one caption said, and it quickly became a trending quote across Nambora City. Women everywhere began sharing her story, some with admiration, others with tears. They saw themselves in her journey. The heartbreak, the humiliation, the slow rebuilding, and the quiet victory. Her photos standing in front of her shop with that calm, proud smile spread across social media like sunlight breaking through clouds. She became a symbol of strength, not because she fought back with anger, but because she healed with grace. Even men started talking, some with guilt, some with respect. They shared her quotes about forgiveness. "Don't let pain harden you. Let it teach you who you are." People began tagging her as an inspiration, calling her Madame Nanya, the woman who turned heartbreak into honor. In interviews, customers spoke about her kindness, how she treated everyone with respect, even those who once looked down on her. Influencers visited her shop just to take pictures with her and wear her designs. News blogs wrote articles about her rise, calling her story a modern-day miracle of strength and faith. Through it all, Ifunanya remained humble. She didn't post out of pride or talk about her ex-husband. She simply worked, smiled, and thanked God quietly. Deep down, she knew her story wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to every woman who had ever been broken and still found a way to rise. The night of the National Fashion Awards in Lagos was dazzling, bright lights, cameras flashing, and the air filled with excitement. Designers from all over the country gathered, each hoping to be recognized. But when the host announced, and the Designer of the Year award goes to Ifunanya Okafor, founder of House of Nanya, the whole hall erupted in applause. For a moment she stood frozen, tears glistening in her eyes. Then she rose gracefully and walked to the stage in a royal blue gown she had designed herself, a gown that shimmered under the lights, bold yet gentle, just like her spirit. Every step she took carried the weight of her journey. The betrayal, the rebuilding, the nights she cried while sewing alone. The audience felt it too. They weren't just clapping for her designs. They were clapping for her story. When she received the trophy, she smiled softly, her hands trembling slightly. "This," she said into the microphone, "is for every woman who was told she couldn't rise again. You can." The room erupted again, louder this time. In the audience, Tebena sat near the back, dressed simply, trying not to be noticed. But his eyes never left her. As he watched her stand on that stage, glowing, confident, and at peace, his heart ached with a mix of pride and regret. He clapped with everyone else, but tears rolled quietly down his cheeks. Ifunanya's gaze brushed over the crowd for a second, and though she saw him, she didn't stop or flinch. She simply smiled. A soft, forgiving smile that said everything without words. Cameras flashed around her as she held her trophy high. The woman who was once left in tears was now standing in the spotlight, calm, elegant, and untouchable. The applause didn't just fill the room that night. It filled the year. After the award show, reporters surrounded Ifunanya as she stepped off the red carpet. Cameras clicked non-stop, microphones were pushed toward her, and everyone wanted to know one thing: how she found the strength to forgive. She smiled gently, her royal blue gown flowing around her like calm water. "Forgiveness," she said softly, "is not weakness. It's freedom. I didn't do it for him. I did it for me." Her voice shook for a second, but her eyes carried a peace that silenced even the loudest cameras. One journalist asked, "But after everything he did, didn't it hurt to let go?" Ifunanya nodded. "Of course it did," she said. "Pain doesn't disappear overnight. But holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I chose to heal instead." The crowd around her went quiet. There was something about her calmness, the way she spoke with both strength and softness, that touched everyone listening. Behind the flashing lights, she thought of the nights she spent crying in her father's old shop, stitching fabric with trembling hands and whispering prayers under her breath. Those nights had shaped her into the woman she had become, graceful, unbroken, and full of quiet power. That evening, her interview went viral across social media. Her words, "I forgave not because it was easy, but because peace deserves space," were quoted everywhere. People called her the face of grace. Women shared her pictures, men praised her strength, and thousands were inspired by the way she turned heartbreak into healing. Ifunanya didn't chase fame. She simply lived her truth. And in doing so, she became the living proof that true power isn't in revenge or pride, but in the ability to rise, smile, and stay kind when life tried to break you. Ifunanya's story spread everywhere, from small village markets to big city billboards. Social media couldn't stop talking about her. People wrote, "He replaced her with a younger woman, but that woman took everything he owned." The story went viral not just because of what she lost, but because of how she rose again. Videos of her interviews, her quotes about forgiveness, and pictures of her elegant designs filled everyone's feeds. Women called her an inspiration. Men called her the definition of grace. But behind the fame was something deeper. People didn't just see a story of revenge, they saw rebirth. They saw a woman who had every reason to become bitter but chose to become better instead. She didn't fight to destroy anyone. She fought to rebuild herself. Her quiet confidence, her poise, and her soft smile told the world that strength isn't about noise. It's about peace. House of Nanya became more than a brand. It became a symbol. Brides wore her gowns to feel strong and beautiful. Mothers quoted her words to their daughters, and her face became the picture of dignity in magazines. Ifunanya became a legend, the woman who turned heartbreak into history. People said her story wasn't about a man who lost everything, but about a woman who found herself. And in every corner of Africa, her name became a reminder that sometimes, when life breaks you, it's only making room for your rebirth.